I played Iron Nest, and this is one of those games that knows exactly what it wants to be. It's a Dieselpunk heavy artillery simulator where you're not just pressing a button and watch a cannon fire, you're reading orders from high command, plotting targets on map, calculating distance and bearings, setting up the cannon, loading the right cell, adjusting the elevation and rotation, and then waiting to see where your shot actually landed. And honestly, that's why the game works. The satisfaction does not come from fast actions. It comes from operating this massive machinery properly and seeing the process come together. The basic loop, it's simple on paper, but there is a lot of interaction behind it. You receive a directive from high command, usually giving you target information, observer bearings, or a rough location. From there, you go to the map, interpret that information, and work out where the target actually is. Sometimes this means triangulating the position using known observers, sometimes it means measuring distance and bearing from your own location. Once you have that information, you take it to the ballistic calculator, where it gives you the setup you need for the shot, the charge, the cannon elevation and rotation. Then you physically prepare the cannon. You choose the right cell for the intended target, load the ammunition, set up the weapon and align it to the target, and then eventually fire. After the shot, you get an aerial photography showing the impact zone, so you can see whether you hit the target, missed it, or hit something you probably didn't want to hit. What I like is that the process feels deliberate. The game makes you engage with the artillery system rather than just watch it happen. You're not only aiming a cannon with a crosshair, you're taking information, converting it into measurements, checking the map, using the calculator, loading the weapon, setting the machinery up, and then committing to the shot. When it works, it feels satisfying because the impact feels earned. You did the steps correctly, you interpreted the information properly, and the cell landed where you intended it to land. The machinery also helps a lot. The whole Dieselpunk setup, the heavy turret, the hydraulics, the loading process, the sound, and the movement of the cannon, it all comes together and gives the game a strong identity. It feels industrial, heavy, and very physical. The missions start quite simple. Early on, you might be given observer information where one observer sees the target at a certain bearing and another observer seeing it from another direction. You use those lines to triangulate the target position, calculate the shot, and fire. But the game does start to add that extra pressure. One example is counter-artillery missions, where enemy guns can retaliate after your first shot. That gives the process a different feel, because suddenly you're not just calmly calculating the perfect shot. You're also working against the clock before the enemy fires back. The small change adds tension without changing what the game fundamentally is. You're still doing the same artillery process, but now mistakes and hesitation matter more. There also seems to be a bigger layer sitting underneath the missions. The game is set in an alternative history version of late 1920s Spain, with the monarchy still in power and anti-monarchist forces acting as one of the main targets. Between missions, you get newspaper reports, and after a certain point, you're given choices around the missions you want to complete. The game description also hints at this question of whether you obey high command, and that is the part I find very interesting. Because in a game like this, the challenge might not just be whether you calculate the shot correctly, it can also become whether you agree with the shot you are being asked to take. In the demo, you already get a glimpse of consequences through the aerial photos after each strike. They don't just show whether you hit the target, they also show the surrounding impact area, which means you can see if civilians, allied positions, or other unintended areas were affected. So there is two possible layers there. One is the practical consequence. If you misread the map, miscalculate the shot, or set up the cannon the wrong way, you might hit something you did not intend to hit. But the more interesting layer is the moral one. What happens if high command gives you an order that feels wrong, risky, or likely to cause collateral damage? The demo does not fully explore that side, at least from what I played, but the setup is definitely there, and if the full game leans into that, it could make the artillery process feel much heavier, because every shot would not just be calculation, it would also be a decision. The main question for the full game is how far they push the mission variety. The core loop is good, but it's very process driven. You receive information, plot the target, calculate the shot, prepare the cannon, fire, and check the result. I enjoy that loop, but for a game to stay engaging, I think they need more layers around it. That could be harder target information, more mission types, more pressure from enemy artillery, more meaningful consequences, more difficult command decisions, or even more reasons to question what you've been asked to do. So for me, it is less a criticism of the demo and more of the main thing I would like to see in the full game. Overall, I came away pretty impressed with Iron Nest. It's clearly a very specific type of game, but I mean that in a good way. It has a clear identity, it commits to the heavy artillery fantasy, and the process of operating the machine is genuinely satisfying when everything comes together. It's not trying to be a fast action game, it's not trying to be a casual shooter, it's a hands-on artillery simulator where the fun comes from reading information, setting up the shot, and watching the result. Considering this is being made by a very small team, it already feels surprisingly well put together. The demo has clearly connected with people, and I can see why. If the full game builds on mission variety, the consequences, and the high command angle, I think Iron Fist could end up being a really strong and memorable simulator.